Today on Design Chat, we're going to chill out in a jungle and very carefully look at the process of design in relation to the experience of the player, our user, in game design. We design for people, and the way we do that is by identifying their needs, whether it's something they don't have but should have, or something they didn't want and really should not have, like a bug. Big problems, small problems, it doesn't matter. To us, any player need is a need we need to address. It might be that we prioritize the larger needs first. Fair. But we do address the needs. Hey, there's a cartoon ape in a jungle, and we like to make games as well as play games. One of the games that we've made before is Small Towers. Small Towers is a 2-player game, and you can join by using chat commands. The bots are showing it off now. You can upgrade, you can recruit archers and marauders, you can recruit healers and engineers and build towers and barricades, you can recruit wizards and cast spells like Meteor Storm or Gold Theft. It's fun. Well, the bots are having fun anyway. So I can tell you about a bug that was in Small Towers. This is an example of a need. And we have to equate needs for the player. First of all, the needs that we talk about are the player's needs. They are not our needs. Ego needs to be checked at the door. We do not make games for ourselves. We make games for our player. This is a critical quality of being a game designer. You have to really care about the player and their needs. To the extent that sometimes you provide what you might call tough love by, for example, making sure the game will allow the player to lose. To surprise the player with an overpowering challenge. Sometimes the player actually needs these things. And of course, sometimes they need loot and treasure and a power-up and a celebration of winning a level. And so when we look at the needs like the one that I saw in this game, we made this game in about 6 weeks. We spent a couple more weeks rigorously testing it to see how it would perform, stress test as much as we could. But the majority of the long-term testing we've done since then has been let the bots play it out, because they are designed to go through all of the functions of the game. And since they're happy to just play and play and play and play, they can get into all kinds of situations that they might be rare situations. Case in point, you can have wizards, and wizards can cast spells. When wizards cast a tree shield spell, a shield surrounds their tree. A big purple sphere surrounds the tree. And it glows and it animates and it does its thing. And when it's done, it flickers and disappears. And the last bug I saw, I should say the most recent because I haven't Can't predict if there are any more bugs. The most recent bug I saw was that the tree shield stuck around. I mean, the evidence was after watching the bots play for hours, not watching them, but after having them run for hours while doing something else, I would see evidence of a tree shield that hung around. It wasn't deleted. It was still visible, maybe not doing anything in terms of blocking enemy players or arrows, but it was there. So, in terms of the rules of the game, in terms of actually blocking the enemy from preventing them from getting to the tree, this shield was inert. It wasn't doing anything, but it was visible. So let's call it. That's a need of the player. It's not a critical need. It's not like I don't have gold and I can't recruit troops, or my arrows are flying in the wrong direction, or the game just isn't running. Those are critical needs that need to be addressed. This is not a critical need, and yet we treat it as a need. The player had a need to not be fooled that there was a tree shield. Both players, actually, the enemy and the player whose tree was shielded, cannot be fooled into thinking that there's a shield when there really isn't. This was a bug, yes. The bug was, hey, that part of the rules where the shield should be removed, it wasn't removed. So while the shield was totally inert, it didn't, there was no actual problem. There was an actual problem, and designers treat it like an actual problem. The player cannot be fooled into thinking that there is a shield when there isn't one. This need needs to be addressed. That should sound small. That should sound subtle. It should sound like, wow, that's a detail. Do you really care about that? I mean, the rest of the game works great. Yes, we care about it. We care about it more than most players might care about it. It's odd to say we are advocating for the player, we are addressing the player's needs, even if they don't care as much about it as we do. But it's true. Because what we're actually doing is treating the need as important as the player who might care about it the most. To really be a designer is to treat needs as needs. So it is subtle, it is small, and it's a need that we need to address. So I went into the code, I analyzed where the tree shield is destroyed, and saw that the condition could be slipped through. It was rare. It was incredibly rare, actually, but it was possible. And I saw that and eliminated the possibility. So now those shields must be removed. I suppose I will need to continually keep an eye out for it from here on out. I suspect if I got it right, I will never see evidence of it. And yet, it could pop up. This kind of attention to detail is what separates careless design from professional or proper best practices of design. Even if it's a small detail that less than 1% of your players will care about, it is a need. It can be addressed, it can be improved, and you should deal with it. Okay. If I'm sounding a little serious about it right now, and if I'm sounding aggravated? I've just spent an hour trying to start my machine so that I could start this stream. And so I'm dealing with a cascade of very sloppy implementation of code, but also sloppy design that causes more issues for the user, in this case me. Variety of things that don't have to do with games, frustratingly so. But long story short, if I am told I should be able to turn on a machine, turn on an application, and do what it says it will do, then do that. It's that simple. It is that simple. Hey player, you can press this button and make this happen. Okay, at that moment you've promised a thing. Now follow through on your promise. Your player's going to trust you. Your player trusts you. They're on your side. The moment you break their trust, you begin to lose them. They are not on your side as much, or maybe not at all. And we know if you don't have the player, you don't have a game. Last time on Design Chat, I ran into a technical issue. The technical issue was minor, but significant enough to cause a problem for my users. The viewers of this series Design Chat expect to be able to see them, and unfortunately I had mistakenly kept the old stream category up. It was a category for a game with mature content. This category is design, or is, just chatting. It does not contain mature content. I'm literally talking to all ages about the best practices of design, and I mistakenly had the wrong thing up. Well, okay. That means that some people won't actually see that episode of Design Chat, which is sad. What did we do? Well, we talked about our menu idea, and then we said, you know what, let's do it. Let's implement it. We said, let's follow the design process, and here are the needs of the player. Yep. Let's see what kinds of ideas we can come up with to address that need. Let's prioritize them to make sure we have the best idea in place, and let's test it. And then let's evaluate that test to see if it can be improved further. With that new insight, we can go back up to these needs, because there's probably something new about these needs we didn't know before. Maybe a new need altogether. So following this process, we said, yeah. Let's go do that. Because there is one thing that we can look at in our menu and then the rest of the game, which is as our player character gets into the win square, we should show them being happy or sad. Sad if they didn't get there in time and they lost the level. Happy if they got there in time and they won the level. And Design Chat bravely went through the rules that would work, even testing out something to realize more of the rules that needed to happen and their details. We even figured out which tools in our current system needed to talk to which tools and what information needed to be saved. Wow, that's just one step away from actually coding. If we do our rule format correctly, we know what data we're working with. Oh gosh, let's just code. And so we did. Crazy, right? This was our menu, but what didn't happen was the happy face or sad face, right? Happy when you actually get into the square in time. We can move around. And when we don't move around, we look at the camera. When you get into the win square, our green goal here, we are meant to stop, look at the camera, and do the happy face. It wasn't doing that before. In fact, it was still looking like you were moving. Whether you were moving to the right or the left, it was just looking like that. And we changed it so it just goes straight to the happy face. Or, if you lose, oh, I'm trying so hard. Look at me trying. I'm trying. Oh. If you lose, it immediately goes to the sad face. Okay, and Design Workshop is working on implementing some buttons for us so that our guy can actually go into different squares that say yes or no when we ask the question, hey, you lost. Would you like to replay this level? No would bring you here. Yes would replay the level. We'll do that. Today, though, we're talking about those needs of the player, no matter how small or subtle. There's one thing to say, wow, I want to make a whole game, or I want to make one character that can move around and look cute. Well, as we've discovered, that's a whole set of rules plus art plus code, and it takes a lot of small steps to get here. I mean, we're here. This looks great. It feels great. This is a good little character. It's very useful. In fact, it's so useful we're using it for our cursor. Same with our win square. It's just a square, but it detects whether we win or lose. And we even got it to shrink in these levels of the game to be the lose condition and talk to a different tool, the game manager, the thing that's overseeing the whole thing and determining whether or not we should do something like replay or move on to the next level. Well, let's think about this small change that we made last time in Design Chat. We actually implemented this, and so I think it's fair for us to really look at the details of this. Because we looked at the details of this movement too, you remember that? We said, wow, we thought it was going to be W-A-S-D. And then we realized what we really mean is we want you to be able to press as many keys as you want, even all of them at the same time, and have the little guy understand what you're trying to do. If I press A and D at the same time, he goes nowhere. Appropriately so. If I let go of A, he goes in a direction. If I do W and D, he goes diagonally, or A and W. Like, this is very intuitive, is how you would describe these controls. It feels very smooth, is how you would describe these controls. We originally said you use WASD. And what we found over time with improvement and iteration and paying attention to the needs of the player, what we found was, oh, wow, we expect diagonal. We expect you to be able to press just all the buttons, and it's still figuring out what we mean intuitively. That's what we expect. That's a need of the player, and wow, better do it. Because of that, paying attention to those details, no matter how small, we made this so much better. It feels really, really good. It feels proper. Now, this is a simple game, but even these simple games have these details. This is a simple thing that we added. Smile when you get into the green square. This is a simple thing, and it has details. We got into the win square, we're smiling, we're looking at the camera, and we're blinking. There's a lot of good things about this. What could be better? I can say, in typical critique form, what a critique is. Oh, hello, there's somebody here. I want to just say thank you very much for lurking. in such a manner that your view counts. Thank you. I can tell you're here. That's great. Mostly Mad Hatter or Poutine Queen, one of you is counting as an actual viewer, and I thank you so much because this doesn't always happen. Thank you. I can tell because it goes from 1, which is me, to 2, and so there's somebody else being counted. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. Anyway, I'm talking design, and I'm talking about a very tiny detail, and here we go. The smallest detail about this, we added that you can get into the wind square, and it will stop going left or right. It'll stop paying attention to the movement you must be doing in order to get into the wind square. The moment you're in all the way, you must be moving. And so you're in one of these frames. You have to be. But then the moment you actually are in there, we said, oh, we should be looking at the player. We should be going to idle. And because we won, we want to be smiling. Now, again, exactly like saying we thought WASD was all we really needed, but now we realize we needed more for our movement. Now I'm looking at a tiny detail about how we are smiling when we get here, and we're doing so immediately. And, well, so isn't that great? We did immediately win. Shouldn't we immediately react? All right, stay with me now, because I'm talking about the smallest, most subtle detail that we have talked about so far with this very simple game. And it really, really illustrates how these small details translate into needs that could make this better. Things that a designer in best practices would pay attention to. Here we go. Little guy is awesome. Little guy is cool. I love little guy. This is you, it says. I am this guy. This is me. I look so good. No, woo. I can say boop 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 doo 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 doo. This is me. Da da da. I start loving this guy. I am this guy. This is me. It says this is you, and you know what? By the time I'm here, I am loving it. I am believing it. This is me. If at any time the game system breaks this, if at any time the game system distracts me from this reality, the reality that, yeah, this is me. It's not, of course. But the player certainly feels that way. The player's making the game in their head. We're just supporting it a little bit, and wow, we are really supporting it with this guy here. If at any time we break this, that's a problem. We had something to add because we were moving, and we would get in the wind square and we'd still be looking like we're moving. And so we said, but we have this smiley face. Let's use it. And we added it, and it's great. I'm saying there's a very subtle problem here. Very subtle. Boop. I was like just barely outside the square. The very subtle problem is this. I'm feeling like the character up until it does something I don't expect it to do, something that surprises me that I didn't control. I'm in total control of this guy. I can stop him, I can move him, I can do whatever I want. I'm in total control. Now, if this goes away and I immediately get sad, actually, this is so subtle it's hard to even justify this as a problem yet. But let's keep going. It's the win that I'm seeing the problem more prominently in. And even though this is subtle, I have to show you the win. Here is my guy who was looking like this frame when he got in the green square. This frame. And then he immediately, he's just barely outside. And then he immediately changes to smiley. This is a surprise. It's not in my control. We do eat bots in a jungle. This is a surprise. It's not in my control. Now, even the you win pop-up is very abrupt. It's very sudden. It's the game system, the game manager saying, hey, we immediately detected you win, and we're actually surprising you with like, yeah, you won. And that's actually not so bad. Now, we might slowly introduce it to the player. If I scared you with a, boo, you won, I mean, I would be still scaring you, right? Now, that's extreme. That's not exactly what we're doing, but we are showing a big you win banner, right? Here's the thing. This is what I'm saying. If I am tightly associating myself with this guy such that this is me, then anytime the game breaks that connection between me and this guy, I feel, well, I could say I feel violated. I feel like this is out of my control and all that stuff. But that might actually be more extreme than what I'm thinking. This just surprised me by not being what I am doing, because I am very tightly controlling this guy. I am pressing the button and it's immediately responding. So when this changes from this to this, without my control, it feels weird. It feels like something broke. It feels like, hold on, is he with me or not? Is that me? The connection between me and this player character is slightly distracted. And I mean subtle. This is a subtle problem, but it's a problem. What I'm suggesting is this immediate change between whatever I'm moving to there can be better. How? What are we talking about? Well, notice what we do when we start the level. Here I am in the menu. But let's look at the level start. We say level 1, ready, set, go. And in between each of those letters, there's a little break in the text with a little tiny pause. We hold on the letters so that the player can read it. We are very careful with allowing the player the time it needs to pay attention to what we want them to pay attention to. And that's the key. We're giving them time. This is very, very common to have a machine, have a system running on a computer that runs nearly instantly, so fast that the human cannot perceive the changes. This is great when we want to do things like animation, because we kind of want it to look smooth. We can move really fast. We can teleport him frame by frame in such a way that he looks like he's just sliding around. That's awesome. But then there's times when we need to pause. Look at the, now this is actually very fortunate. I can actually get our character in a position to demonstrate what I'm talking about now better. Notice that when we say ready, set, go, we're giving the player enough time to really get it. We're giving the player enough time to look at the level and figure out what they need to do. Okay? We're giving the player time, and we do this often. Giving the player time highlights and accents what we're trying to say. If we said you win in the blink of an eye, they wouldn't know they won. But if we shorten it, it's not very exciting that they won. If we lengthen it, then it's really accented. Now we can go too far. They can get bored with it. But for the most part, we want to give, it's very common that we give the player time as part of our process of caring for the player and making sure that they have the time to focus on the things they should focus on for our experience. In this case, it is so good to feel like this guy and be in this control. And we also want to win. So here's me trying to very carefully cause this issue. I would love it for him to do this and get there, and then look at the camera, and then win. Oops. How did he get to a move frame? That was weird. Well, there's another bug. Actually, that's a bug. Let me see if I can demonstrate this again. I would love it, because he instantly has been just happy face, and that I'm saying is a surprise that is, it's not a bad surprise, but it feels out of control, and it is not, it's not helping me stay connected and help me maintain the illusion that I am this character. Anytime we break that, we're in trouble. We shouldn't be doing that. It's a subtle but important thing. I would like it to stare at you and then smile. Can we do that? Can we just have him stop, stare at you, and then smile? How long? I don't think it needs to be long at all. The problem, though, is that right now it's instant. Think that instant is a surprise that is out of my control, and it makes me feel like, wait a minute, my character can be out of my control, but I like my little guy. I am my little guy. How can you take my control away from me, game? You see where this... If I take it to the extreme, you begin to see why this is actually a need. Now, I'm taking it to the extreme so that we pay attention to it. Is it as big as, like, the game not running? No. Is it as big as not having player control or a win-lose condition? No. But now that we're here, and I can see this problem, it's a need, and I want to pay attention to it. I want player character to get in there, look at you, and then... Whoops. I want the player character to get in there, look at you, and then smile. How long is that? Well, it's even less time, I think, than these text things are up. It's maybe more time than the blank in between the text. Oh, I lost. Now, losing, I think the same thing. I think the same thing. I think the player needs to see me looking at the camera and stopped. We know how to do that. We know how to do that. In the engine, we know that the player character moves with this move character script, and we can see these numbers here change as I play and move. These numbers indicate what direction player is trying to go, even when it's combinations of directions in X and Y. And to get him to look like he stopped, we just make sure they're both 0. That's all. In fact, we do that when we get in the win square. We set these to 0. That's how he originally looked like he was looking at us. What we changed from that moment while we were developing this was that we set him to immediately go to a set of frames that are happy or sad. So he could be happy and blink or sad and blink. Immediately. You win, you do 0 out the movement, but we never see this neutral state because we immediately go down here to this happy or sad frame. So, yeah, he's happy, but the subtle problem, the very fine detail we're going to pay attention to because it matters to some player in some small way. Here's the thing. It's not going to be that only one player cares about it. It's going to be that every player will care about it in some degree, to some degree. If I, am casually caring about this game at all, and I see that problem where it's in my control, but now it's out of my control for just that moment, I am kind of learning a lot of things about the game. One of them is that I could be taken out of control. Now, one could argue the same thing happens once we hold the player and freeze them. Here, we froze them, and we freeze them here so they can't move. So when they win or lose, and in the beginning of the level, they're frozen, and then we let them go. We also were very careful to throw this large text up over the whole thing to kind of say there is something else happening here. There is a level. There is ready, set, go. There is something happening, and that is also going on. So there's you, there's the win square, and now there is also some kind of time limit. We're going to have to talk about telling the player the instructions of each level as well, like the square will shrink now, get there. But for now, let's deal with this. I want to see a bit of time. After I get in and win, or after I lose, I want the player character to stare at you blank, just like this. And then I want him to be happy. So, like this, and then this. And the you win can pop up immediately, that's fine. And this is how I believe this is going to improve it. If we do this, and if we have a moment where it says, for example, like, you win, that delay before he says yay is the same delay that the human takes, the player, to read the words you win, to react to the fact that they won or lost. The reaction time of the player is exactly why we're going to pause. It's exactly the reason why we're going to set a timer and delay the happy face or sad face. It's exactly why we're going to hold on this neutral pose and then do the expression. It's because of the time it takes for the player, the moment they need to pay attention and recognize the detail that we want them to see. Hey player, you won. I did. Now, I exaggerated just slightly, but there was time. To do it instantly is actually wrong. The system knows we won. The player takes time to learn it. If this is you, player, then I need the player character. I need the player character to demonstrate that time and reaction. Even if it is more than the actual human needs, I need that. That extra time is going to be better. Now, I did give this some thought, but frankly, I gave this far more thought as to how I would explain this tiny, tiny, subtle thing we're going to pay attention to. Because I can just throw in a timer, I know it's going to be better, and it's going to look great. I could have just done it, but I didn't. Instead, I wanted to actually highlight, I'm going to take this entire hour talking about the fact that this is a tiny detail, exactly like the tree shield in Small Towers. This is a small detail that was so rare that you wouldn't even see it. It wouldn't come up. And when it came up, it wouldn't actually impact the game, except that the player might think that it was up. It was distracting. It actually reminds the player that there is a game system run by a computer, as opposed to, in that case, little armies on the bottom of the screen going after the flag and casting spells and lobbing arrows and building towers. Now, it sounds goofy to say that, the player actually believed that was happening. Well, yeah, and we are doing so much to support that idea. The characters could be healed, they can die, they can damage each other, they attack each other, they can go back and forth, they can cast spells, they build towers, they run out of gold, they go get the flag. Yeah, actually everything about the game supports the notion that they're tiny little guys having a war at the bottom of the screen. As silly as that is their world. And the player says, oh, okay, cool. That is what's happening. And they make it real. In the same way, even though this is a much simpler game, I must admit, this is simple. The player believes, oh, this is me. And this is real. Anytime we distract them from that reality that they are making for themselves, we're doing damage to the experience that we want them to have. The more that we can make this movement feel so smooth and awesome and intuitive, the more we're accenting and supporting that experience we want them to have. So yeah, it's a very subtle detail that I'm talking about. Boop, boop. It's a very subtle detail. But the difference is between distracting them from the experience we want them to have versus supporting the experience we want them to have. The system knows that they lost. Switch the player to the sad face. Well, yeah. But we realize now that's going to mean the player is distracted from the experience that we want them to have, and the illusion that they carry, the illusion that they make for this, is damaged. So, could we very carefully go back into code, even though it's design chat? Yes. Because we've outlined the psychology of why this is so necessary, and let's be fair, it is subtle. If we didn't do this, no one would be able to find the detail that caused the problem. They would feel it, though, to some degree. But I think it's necessary that we try. And I showed you, I demonstrated, with as best I could, how this would feel different by just sort of missing the square a little bit and then jumping in. Let's add a timer to the game manager and delay when, specifically, we tell this player character to look happy or sad. Delay the expression happy or sad. Where do we say happy or sad? Well, we tell this is the move character script. We tell the animation to be happy or sad later on. In fact, we could just search for happy or sad. Let's try happy. We search for this. No? Really? Really? Honestly? Is it case sensitive? No, it's not. Okay, I didn't put happy. I thought I did a comment for happy or sad. Maybe it's the animate character script. There it is. This signal comes from the game manager upon endgame. This is where we set happy or sad. The signal comes from the game manager once. Okay. Well, then our delay must be here because, unless we do a different separate signal for the happy or sad signal, but I think it, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, makes more sense that the animate character script should be in charge of the delay to express happy or sad. All right. Fair enough. We need to know what expression they're going to go to. This information comes in from the player, from the game manager. This information, whether the player won, comes in as part of this function call. So we get the signal with, yeah, the player won, or no, the player lost. But we are in post-game. So this can be set immediately, sure. We are already setting the move script to look straight at the camera, and we are even disabling movement. So all of that is already taken care of. This is happening, but it's happening instantly. So we really just want to take this and delay it. This function call happens once, and it's, line by line, but it happens really fast at that one time. What we need to do is take this out and cause a condition that only comes about after a delay. The timer will be here that runs down and, well, we'll take this somewhere else and we'll put it in a place that will track a timer. And when the timer is up, then we'll do these things. Right now we're using this current frame to just point the character directly at this expression right now, because this will be used right here every single frame. This is actually update. Every single frame we reset the thing. So this happens instantly because the very next frame we pay attention to it. What we need to do is not set the current frame yet. Yet we still need to know what frame to go to, because we either won or we lost. So there's two pieces of information we need to save. Two pieces of memory that we want our script here, the animation script, to remember. One is, if we're going, I guess we could say two pieces of information, whether we won or not. That could be one, okay? Yeah, because we're told here and we could just remember it. We could save it as our own variable here in this script. That way, we know which frame to go to. We just basically do this. The other piece of information is the timer, the amount of time left. Now we could set the timer here, but we're going to need to run the timer down somewhere else because this is only called once. So we'll set the timer, say, half a second. And then the half a second's going to have to get less and less and less. And once it's less than 0, then we will do this. Okay, I'm going to cut this right here. Cut. And I'm going to say we need to set a timer to delay expression. And we need to save player 1. The value, if player has won. Let's say save whether player has won. How about that? Okay. Because we are going to save it. Whether they won or lost, we are going to save. Yeah? These are two things we're absolutely going to do. We need a timer variable, and we need the whether we won or lost variable. Basically this, the Boolean, but as some variable that this script knows about. This is the animation script. It does make more sense that we keep track of this stuff here. Are we in post-game? Yes. We're already doing something exactly like this. Are we in post-game? Yes. Here's more information we also need to know. Has the player won this game? So if this is yes, this could be yes or no, and that tells us whether they actually won or lost. If this is no, then we don't care what this value is, but it will default to 0 or false or loss, but it won't matter. These Boolean variables can be true or false. That's all they can hold, and that's all we need. Hey, again, I really appreciate it. I can tell when people are here because my little view says goes from 1, which is me, to 2, and that means there's somebody else here. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. As always, please use Command T just to let me know you're here. All right. If our script is aware of who won, did the player win this level or not? I mean, we already know we're in post-game. That's great. But now we also know, or we can know, whether we won or not. There's the other piece that we wanted to do. It's very similar to this. This is actually used for animation timing. Very specifically, we use it for blinking and stuff, and so we're just going to leave it there. I need a separate timer because we're going to want to blink and keep track of this extra time. This time is a floating point variable, in other words, a decimal number. It's good for keeping track of seconds, even fractions of a second, which is what we do here for animation and for this. I guess we could call it expression time because it is really only going to be used for one thing. It is used simply to say, delay the expression, happy or sad. Now, at this point, you're saying, wow, we're doing a lot just to do this tiny, subtle detail. Yes. Now you get it. That's why I spent this much time talking about it, because I want you to understand why this is actually important. Does it mean we have a game or we don't have a game? No. Unless you feel like breaking the experience for the player is breaking the game. And then you realize, oh wow, this is important. Yes. So, is in postgame, have we won, and how much time is left before we change our expression to be happy or sad? I think we have all the information we need to save. This thing can now remember that. Let's go back to where we were. Because we wrote down that we need to set a timer to delay the expression. Now we have an expression timer, and I said maybe half a second. That sounds like a good guess. We'll adjust it if we need to. I'll set that timer to half a second. And we need to save whether the player has won or not. We have a variable now called player1, and we will simply record what the game manager has told us. Does it really want me to change the... I guess I could. Did player win? How about that? Okay, because it is in post-game. It is after the fact. And so if I actually describe it as past tense, this is far more descriptive, and it also is a separate name, so it is clear that we're taking information from the signal that we get from the game manager. Hey, we're in post-game, player won, or they didn't win. And so yes, we're in post-game because we got the signal. We can go ahead and set the expression timer, but now we also know, did the player win, yes or no? Cool. We are already getting this signal, and we do know this information, and we are setting this, so we are actually ready to go. All we need to do now is implement the rule. Well, if it's the next frame, we should run this timer down exactly the way we run our other timer down. And if that timer gets less than 0, then do this stuff that I've been holding in my clipboard. I hope it's still pasted. We want to change the frame. This is where we change frame based on movement. And if we are not in postgame, if postgame is false, then we actually pay attention to movement. But what if we are in postgame? Well, if not postgame, right, then we do all that. Else, we are in postgame. And here, I do want to do something new. Let's run the timer down. Run expression timer down. Now this is exactly the same as what we're doing with the animation timer, the old timer we have, but we have something new called the expression timer. We're just going to do the same thing. This now equals, well, it's going to be reduced by this amount. This amount is how much time has passed since the last frame, even if it's a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of a second. I'm talking 0.001 seconds, like a tiny, because we do lots of frames per second. It's extremely accurate, though, and that's good. Now, we've reduced it. If now, on this level, this next line, we reduced it here now if it is less than 0. And I'll say less than equal to, that's fine. If it is less than or equal to 0, that means the timer is up. Cool. At that time, I would like to paste. I'm going to paste the code that we had before, because if player 1, which is now called did player win. So if the player did win, then we know to do the happy face. Else we do sad face. That's the exact same code we had before. We know it works. But it only will work now if this expression timer has run all the way down from what we called it half a second. And this is reduced every frame, so it will skip this until it is actually run down. And then it will go happy or sad. Cool. There's one more piece to this puzzle because we have blinking and stuff. This pattern that we did up here for movement, where we set the frame, depending on what movement they're doing, and then add one if they're blinking. We actually need to keep doing this because the blinking looks great. And the blinking works well. The reason it works well is because we actually do this. So I'm going to do it again. It's a little odd, but I think that's what our guy needs, and it works really well with the way that we've placed our frames here. So these rules say, if we are in post-game, because we're not in post-game, but we are in post-game, then run the expression timer down. Because the game manager's already handling the freezing of the player, the making the character stare at you, it's not moving at all, we zero that movement out, everything. That's already being taken care of. All we need to do is hold on it. Just wait a second, just wait a little tiny bit. That's what I was demonstrating before. Just wait. Give the player enough time to absorb the fact that they won or they lost. Especially if they lost. The square just disappeared and suddenly there's this big text that says you lose. And the shock. I mean, I'm being dramatic, but they need a moment. We'll give them a moment, and this will do it. If that moment is done, then show us happy face or sad face. And by the way, if they're blinking or not blinking, just make sure that's maintained, please. I think this will work. If anything, we might do something else just to make sure this is only set once, because we really only need to set it once. I mean, I suppose we could say else if expression timer is more than 0. In fact, I am going to do that. I'm going to say else if. And this does the same as what we just did. It's only going to now skip this after this initially is set. In other words, if expression timer is more than 0, well, that makes sense if we just set it to 0.5 seconds. So good. We're going to run the timer down. And we continue to run it down until this moment. This just got run all the way down and it is now up. Great. We can detect it and we set happy or sad. This is done now. And it's done according to whether they won. And we add a frame if they're blinking. But we don't come back here again because now the expression timer is not more than 0. And so we only do it once. I'm doing this intentionally just to do it once and make sure we don't accidentally cause problems, like it would never blink. I think it would blink, but I'm just being careful. This might not be necessary, but we could test that separately. This is ready to test. The test is simply this. Is there a small amount of time? And I'm talking about 0.5 seconds. We should maybe talk about tuning this variable. Should it be more or less? Again, subtle needs of the player are being addressed here. And this was a function we wrote before. We are modifying it to add a delay. Instead of instantly making him happy or sad, we're going to see if maybe now there's a tiny delay between reaching the green square and showing us how happy he is. Should we go? Well, we actually got there with a delay before he went, yay! I'm just going to go all the way to the right. And he does have that moment. Unfortunately, he's not looking at us during that moment. It's kind of cool that he stays frozen for a second. But I actually thought he should, and that he would look at us first and then look happy. And he's not. Okay. Very particularly now. This is something the game manager should handle because it's the game manager that does freeze the player and zero out these numbers to make him stop, to make him... Oh, I guess we could set the current frame to exactly what we want. I think we could do that. Let's actually see if we can pause this action at just the right moment. I'm going to try this. It's a bit tricky. Okay, I've paused. This is zeroed out, actually. So I was moving to the right and just holding it there. I've paused it immediately as soon as I got in. In fact, I guess I should make sure. Okay. Yeah, I just stepped forward one frame while holding the right key. So this literally should be +1 because I was moving to the right, but it has been zeroed out because the game manager knows, first of all, it has disabled the move script, but also it zeroed this out. That should be read by... Oh, it's not read by the animate character script because we are in post-game. That's what's up. We're in post-game. This moment that I have frozen here, we're in post-game. Player character cannot change its current frame from where it is. But it can if I do this. If I manually set this and cheat and step forward one frame, that's what I want. So what does that mean? Well, he's about to do the happy face after a short delay. Ready? There we go. And that's great, but I need him to do that automatically, not manually. What did I do manually? Well, the animate script is still in control of this, so let's just go right back to it. The animate script that we played with used to set the happy or sad face automatically, but that wasn't correct. And before then, he would kind of stare at you, but I think that's because we weren't setting it to anything, and we weren't preventing him from changing his frames based on movement. Now we say, well, if we're in post-game, don't pay attention to the movement. So yeah, that actually makes sense. Don't change anything if we're in post-game is what the rule is. Well, okay, if that's the rule, don't change any frame, then let's set the pose to idle. And if it won't change while we're in post-game, then it should look correct. Like we're going to manually set the current frame to 0. We're doing it here first, automatically, as soon as we're in post-game. Now this is also an instant change. You know, could we get more detailed and say, let's delay a little bit and then look at the camera and then do the happy face? I mean, yeah, 100%. I mean, you're talking to an animator, of course. I would absolutely have lots of expression on the character, but I think this is the detail that I'm looking for. Let's test. I would love him to go to the wind square. This is me. I'm feeling like me. I'm so free. I can go in between letters. And loving it. Now I'm going to go here. Hey, oh my God. Not only do I feel satisfied that we got through that exercise, but I'm telling you, that is so much better. I'm just going to go to the right. I'm just going to win. Hey, why did he look sad for half a second? Why did he look sad for half a second? That's a bug. That wasn't the expression problem. That was a different problem, but it clearly was caused by whatever it is we're doing. Is it because he's in the middle of a blink when we win? Yeah. If he's not in the middle of a blink, it doesn't do this problem. If he is in the middle of a blink, it does. Let me test that theory. Blink 1,000, 2, 1,000. Blink 1,000, 2, 1,000. Blink. Yep. Yep. That's the problem. Well, where is that? We had this. We had a similar problem with our movement, actually. Oh, right. Set the current frame to 0, but if we're blinking, this right here. We also need to do this here. This is a little bit of a pain, I gotta say, but this pattern needs to be maintained because of the way we set up our blinking. This will fix the problem. It's subtle. We need to test it very carefully, but we can do it. Now, subtle bugs from subtle problem fixing, and yeah. So, blink 1,000, 2, 1,000. Blink 1,000, 2, 1,000. Darn it. It's tough. It's tough to test this one, but let's see. Blink 1,000, 2, 1,000. Blink 1,000, 2, 1,000. Blink. Oh, shoot. It did still happen. It did still happen because, and he was actually showing the sad frame. That's weird, right? Show the sad face, and if blinking, add 1. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, whoops, 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 whoops. Don't do this every... Oh, my gosh. The expression timer is running down. When it's done, that's what this is. The expression timer is running down every frame, every single frame, as long as the expression timer can. But only when the timer is up do we set this frame. So I shouldn't be doing this here. This is happening every frame while the timer's running. No, wrong. It happens here. After we set the current frame, we need to do this. Not every frame and not, don't forget to do it. Like, we need to do this in this pattern. We set the current frame, we do this. We set the current frame, we do this. Yeah. We set the current frame, we do this. That's the pattern. Okay. Did we fix this? Did we fix this? Did we fix this? I think both were actually a problem. I think it was also the case we needed to do it there when we set it to 0. So I'm cheating. Here we go. Go to the right. Oop. Hey. Details. But this is why I care about it. This is why designers care about it. Oh, I should test with the blink. Blink 1,000, 2, 1,000. Blink 1,000, 2, 1,000. Whoops, I missed. Try it again. Blink 1,000, 2, 1,000. Blink. Okay, I didn't hit it exactly. It's tough. It's a tiny little window of time. Get in the wind square while you're blinking. Okay. Like while you are in blink. It's a tough one. Yeah, this looks a million times better. I can't tell you what a difference that makes. It actually makes him look like animated, expressive, blah, 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 right? It's the whole deal. Especially with the blinking in place. I'm actually going to have a really hard time testing this bug, but it does look good, doesn't it? Blink 1,000, 2, 1,000. Blink, darn it. 1,000, 2. It's hard. 1 1,000, 2 1,000. Blink. There we go. I mean, I think we got it. Let's test lose. Let's test lose. Da, 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 da. I'm the sky. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, wait. I'm supposed to go to the wind square. Quick, get there. Oh. Oh. That actually looks so much better. And it's not just because we spent time on it. We want to see the product of our good work. I'm saying, as the player who has never seen this game before and just getting used to being this guy, I feel connected. I continue to feel connected. I'm not broken from that connection or distracted from that connection. I did win, right? As the player who's never played this before, I'm role-playing now. I'm sitting here and I'm feeling like I'm this guy and I'm kind of getting there, but I'm really terrible at it. And I feel this. This feels different. And that's what I'm talking about. It is subtle. It is psychological. And it is important because without the player, there is no game. You can extend this to mean the importance of these subtle details that impact player experience in such a minor way is actually important. It is a player need. What's up, bots? Bots are playing small towers. Man, I've been seeing them upgrading and doing all kinds of stuff. Pardon me while I nerd out on the stats. We'll explain at some point how valuable this is. They certainly have been casting spells, right? Sure. I haven't seen the tree shield, actually, not specifically, but I was doing other things. But yeah, they're doing everything else. Good. This ape in a jungle likes to make games as well as play games, and if you're interested in that, then follow and be notified. And when you show up, please do Command Tie. Command Tie lets me know you're here, and I can say, oh my goodness, you are here! Just like that. That's exactly how I'm going to say it. I promise. Until then, have fun, do well, be good, stay safe. See ya.